Welcome to Book Summary Podcast.
Today, we're embarking on exploration, really, into a book that has just profoundly reshaped how millions think about money and wealth. We're talking about Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It's often called, one of the most impactful personal finance books ever. And for good reason. Our source material today, it's packed with Kiyosaki's unique perspectives, all stemming from the dramatically different financial philosophies of his two fathers. It's a narrative that genuinely challenges traditional wisdom and really champions financial education.
Yeah, what's truly fascinating here, I think, is that this deep dive isn't just about financial strategies, is it? It's more a journey into understanding the sheer power of mindset, how those really deep beliefs about money can actually dictate your financial destiny. We'll be pulling out the core nuggets of wisdom and maybe some of those surprising facts that can genuinely shift how you see money working.
Exactly. Our mission today is to unpack Kiyosaki's core ideas, help you understand the why behind his, let's face it, sometimes controversial advice, and hopefully give you some practical insights, things you might apply to your own financial journey. So Kiyosaki kicks off by introducing us to his two formative figures. There's his highly educated poor dad. That was his biological father. And then his entrepreneurial, largely uneducated rich dad, his best friend Mike's father. And the stark contrast in their financial advice, that forms the bedrock of his entire philosophy. So let's dig into that contrast first.
Okay, yeah. The fundamental premise is really that having these two just incredibly different viewpoints, it forced Kiyosaki to actively think for himself. Instead of just passively accepting one path or the other. I mean, imagine growing up hearing the love of money is the root of all evil from one dad, and then hearing the lack of money is the root of all evil from the other. That kind of direct contradiction, it forces you to figure things out on your own, doesn't it?
It really does. And it highlights a critical gap, right? If financial education isn't standard in schools, and most of us learn about money from our parents, what happens if your parents have what Kiyosaki calls that poor person's financial programming? It could mean even brilliant, highly educated people, doctors, accountants. They might still struggle financially just because they lack that basic financial literacy.
Precisely. And it's more than just knowledge, it's about the internal dialogue. There's that memorable early lesson Kiyosaki shares, how his rich dad absolutely forbade the words, "I can't afford it," just wouldn't let him say it. Instead, he insisted on asking, "How can I afford it?" See, one phrase, "I can't afford it," it basically just shuts down your brain's problem-solving side, while "how can I afford it" forces it to wake up, to look for solutions. It's active versus passive thinking.
Yeah, and he tells that amusing story, but it's really illustrative, about him and Mike trying to make money by counterfeiting lead nickels, of all things. And even though it was, illegal and their get-rich-quick scheme failed miserably, his poor dad's encouragement, telling them to keep going despite the failure, actually taught a valuable lesson about persistence, maybe ingenuity, even if it was a bit misguided at first.
Right. And zooming out a bit, this contrast, it really extended to almost every part of their lives.
Yeah.
One dad pushed for the traditional path, job security, company benefits, the whole package. The other believed in, total financial self-reliance, creating jobs, not just finding one. One saw a home as your biggest investment. The other, unequivocally, called it a liability. So this isn't just different opinions on money. It's like fundamentally different philosophies towards life itself. And how, as Kiyosaki often says, people really do shape their lives through their thoughts. It's powerful stuff.
And out of all this came that central lesson. Kiyosaki talks about working for Mike's dad for 10 cents an hour. And then later for free. And that experience led him to this really profound realization. The rich don't work for money. It's about not letting fear and greed dictate your financial choices. What Kiyosaki's rich dad called avoiding the rat race, where your life is just controlled by those two emotions, fear of not having enough, greed for wanting more, leading people to work incredibly hard for money, but without truly understanding what they're working for or how to make money work for them. Okay, so if the rich don't work for money, what do they work for? This is where it gets really core, right? Kiyosaki basically distills financial literacy down to one simple but incredibly profound rule. He says, you must know the difference between an asset and a liability and buy assets. Simple as that. He argues most people struggle financially exactly because they don't grasp this basic distinction. They end up buying liabilities they think are assets.
Yes. And what's so insightful is his plain language definition. It just cuts through all the typical accounting jargon. An asset, he says, puts money in your pocket. A liability takes money out of your pocket. End of story. He's actually quite critical of traditional accounting definitions, thinks they're confusing for the average person. He argues that the numbers, combined with understanding cash flow, where the money is actually going, tells the real story, not just, static balances on a sheet.
And he shows this so clearly with those cash flow patterns. For the poor, a job salary comes in and boom, it's almost immediately gone. Taxes, rent, food, transport, out it goes. Then the middle class, okay, their income often increases, but so do their expenses. Especially liabilities, bigger mortgages, car payments, credit card debt. It keeps them sort of tethered to their jobs, right?
Exactly. But the rich, they focus on something different. Accumulating income-generating assets. Think rental properties, stocks that pay dividends, owning businesses, maybe notes where someone owes you money with interest, or even intellectual property, like patents or book royalties. These assets then fund their expenses and allow for reinvestment, which leads to growing wealth and eventually real financial freedom. The money flows in.
That's a huge difference. But then there's a big one, the one that always gets people talking. Why does Kiyosaki often say a house is a liability, not an asset? He argues pretty strongly that if your house is your largest investment, you're in trouble. Because, while a home might appreciate over time, hopefully, it also has significant ongoing expenses, right? Mortgage payments, property taxes, insurance, maintenance, repairs, all that ties up capital that could be invested elsewhere, making money. He even uses his wife's parents as an example. They were forced to move because property taxes got too high after they retired. It's a stark illustration.
Yeah, and if we dig into that, what we see is the rat race for the middle class is often characterized by something he calls bracket creep. Your income goes up, maybe you get a raise, but then your expenses tend to rise right along with it, often fueled by debt, to maintain a certain lifestyle, or by more liabilities like a bigger house or a newer car. And this, he says, is high-risk living caused by weak financial education, quote unquote. It leaves people financially vulnerable, often totally dependent on their next paycheck, on their employers. Their money is constantly flowing out.
Okay, now, this next part. This is where it gets really thought-provoking, maybe even a bit controversial for some. Kiyosaki directly challenges that popular Robin Hood idea, tax the rich to help the poor. He argues, quite bluntly actually, that this ideal has actually caused more pain for the poor and middle class. He doesn't mince words. He calls Robin Hood a crook.
Right. And he gives some interesting historical context for this view. Income taxes, he points out, were often initially temporary things. Introduced to fund wars like against Napoleon or the U.S. Civil War. They only became permanent later, 1874 in England, 1913 in the U.S., and the initial argument was that they would only hit the rich. So the big question he raises is, how did this backfire, according to him? Because the rich, using their financial knowledge, found an escape hatch, and that escape hatch was the corporation.
Yeah, he explains that a corporation isn't like a physical building, it's just a legal document, a legal entity. But this entity offers huge advantages, generally lower income tax rates than individuals pay, and crucially, the ability to pay many expenses with pre-tax dollars. He talks about how things that seem personal vacations disguised as board meetings, car payments, health clubs, even meals out can potentially become legitimate company expenses. Plus, corporations offer a layer of legal protection, shielding personal assets from lawsuits.
Exactly. What's really insightful here is his framing of it as a continuous kind of war between the haves and have-nots. The rich, he argues, don't just sit back and accept new taxes. They react strategically. They use their resources, sharp lawyers, smart accountants, sometimes political influence to find legal ways around them to minimize their tax burden. And that's why financial literacy, especially understanding the law and tax codes, gives such a vast advantage. It allows the rich, often legally, to pay less in taxes proportionally than people earning far less. It's this dynamic game of adaptation.
Okay, so given this complex financial world, Kiyosaki says true financial intelligence or financial IQ isn't just one skill. It's a synergy, really, of 4 distinct skills working together. First is accounting, which is basically just being able to read numbers, understand financial statements like your own. Second, investing, what he calls the science of making money, understanding how your capital can generate more capital. Third, understanding markets, knowing about supply and demand, both the technical side like charts and the fundamental side like a company's real value. And finally, law, being aware of corporate rules, state regulations, federal laws, especially those tax advantages and protections we just talked about.
Right. And building on that, he makes this really bold claim. The rich invent money. Yeah. He gives a very concrete example from back in the early 90s when the Phoenix housing market was depressed. He'd find, say, a $75,000 house being sold for $20,000 or less at a bankruptcy auction. He'd buy it. Then he'd turn around and sell it for $60,000, but with no money down from the buyer. What he did was create a $40,000 promissory note, basically, a legal IOU from the buyer to him. That note went into his asset column and it generated 10% interest income for him. He and his wife apparently did 6 deals like this, creating over $190,000 in assets just from these notes, and generated about $19,000 a year in income, mostly sheltered through their private corporation.
Wow, that's such a powerful illustration of how money is only an agreement, as he says, and how it can actually be invented through financial smarts, not just earned by working harder at a job. He apparently spent only about 30 hours total on those 6 deals to generate $190,000 in assets, with no initial taxes paid on that principal amount. It really makes you rethink how value can be created, doesn't it?
It does. And taking a step back, this kind of investing, he argues, isn't gambling if you actually know what you're doing. It's about combining that technical knowledge, some wisdom, strategic thinking, all to actively cut the odds, lower the risk. As he puts it, the smarter you are, the better chance you have of beating the odds. It's about informed action, not just rolling the dice.
Which then leads to another really critical lesson he shares. Work to learn. Don't work for money. He suggests you should actively look for jobs based on the skills you'll acquire, not just the paycheck or the job security. He did this himself, right? Joined the Marines to learn leadership, then worked at Xerox specifically for their famous sales training. Not because he wanted a long-term career at Xerox, but purely for the sales skills. It was all about skill acquisition.
Yeah, and this raises an important point about specialization in today's workforce. While specializing can definitely boost your pay in a specific field, Kiyosaki warns it can also trap and depend you on that one niche. If that niche disappears, you're stuck. The alternative he pushes is developing broad management skills, understanding cash flow, systems, managing people, plus those crucial soft skills, sales, marketing, writing, public speaking, negotiation. He thinks these are the base skill of personal success. He even tells a story about advising a talented writer to learn sales. He told her it would help her become a best-selling author, not just a best writing author. It's about the whole package.
Okay, so you get the financial literacy, you learn the skills, but then there are these internal roadblocks.
Right.
Kiyosaki identifies 5 big ones that stop people from actually building those asset columns: fear, cynicism, laziness, bad habits, and arrogance.
Let's start with fear. He's very clear. Everyone, even rich people, fears losing money. It's natural. The key difference, though, is how you handle that fear. He says people are so afraid of losing that they lose. They let the fear paralyze them. He points out that learning to ride a bike, getting good at golf, usually involves some falling, some losing first. He tells you to remember the Alamo, not as a defeat, but as a rallying cry. Turn failures into inspiration. It's about resilience.
Okay, resilience against fear. What about cynicism? He describes this as the chicken little mindset. You know, the sky is falling. It's when you let doubts and all that external noise from friends, family, colleagues, the news stop you from acting.
Right. Whereas savvy investors, he says, often see opportunities when everyone else is too afraid to act. That's when the bargains appear. He shares that story about his friend who backed out of a great real estate deal in Phoenix, just because a neighbor who knew nothing about investing called it risky. The friend missed out on maybe $95,000 because he listened to the cynic. It's about filtering the noise.
And he tackles that common complaint about real estate too, doesn't he? The "I don't want to fix toilets" line.
Yes. He says those "I don't wants" hold the key to your success. Instead of letting a "don't want" like fixing toilets stop you, find a solution. Like, hire a property manager. It shows how criticism or cynicism can blind you, while analysis finding solutions opens your eyes to possibilities.
Okay, next up is laziness, which he says often shows up as just being busy. People work incredibly hard, long hours, but they neglect the crucial areas like their financial education or avoid learning new things that could actually change their situation. His rich dad believed "I can't afford it" was a sign of mental laziness, whereas asking "how can I afford it" forces your brain to work, to find possibilities. It's about being busy with the right things.
Definitely. And then bad habits. This is a big one. He heavily promotes pay yourself first. It's a principle from that classic book, The Richest Man in Babylon. Even when cash is tight, he insists on paying himself first, meaning investing in his assets before paying bills. Now, this creates pressure, right? Creditors might start calling. But he argues this pressure forces him to find new ways to generate income. It exercises his mental money muscles, making him financially stronger. He strongly advises against racking up consumer debt and definitely against dipping into savings or investments to pay routine bills. It's about building discipline.
That takes real discipline. Okay, and the last one, arrogance.
Yeah, his take is pretty direct here. What I know makes me money. What I don't know loses me money. Simple as that. Arrogant people, he observes, often use that arrogance to basically hide their ignorance. They act like what they don't know isn't important or worth learning. His advice: be humble. Listen to experts, even ones you disagree with initially, and really embrace mistakes. See them as essential learning opportunities. It's about staying open, always learning, not pretending you have all the answers.
Okay, so overcoming those internal blocks is key. Then Kiyosaki offers these 10 practical steps to kind of awaken your financial genius. And these aren't just actions, are they? It feels more like a mindset shift. He quotes that gold miner saying, "There is gold everywhere. Most people are not trained to see it." It's about developing that financial vision.
Absolutely. And a really foundational step is number 1, find a reason greater than reality. This means finding a deep emotional why. Like maybe you want total financial freedom by age 40 so you can travel or spend more time with family. Something powerful enough to keep you going when you hit those inevitable bumps in the road. It's your motivation, your fuel.
That makes total sense. You need that deep drive. What's another key step?
He really stresses the power of making choices. Consciously choosing what you do with your time, your money, and importantly, what you put into your head. Like choosing to buy business books or attend a seminar instead of buying the latest gadget or TV. Which leads right into the next point. Invest in education first. He talks about that $385 real estate course that ended up making him millions. So attend seminars, listen to audio programs while you drive, read books, learn from financial heroes, whether it's Buffett or Trump in his examples or Peter Lynch, study what they did, how they think.
Continuous learning again. So vital. What about the influence of people around us?
Yes. That leads to a really crucial, maybe tough piece of advice. Don't listen to poor or frightened people. He calls them chicken littles. Remember them. They'll always tell you why something new or different won't work, why it's too risky. He mentions friends who told him his 16% tax lien certificate investments were crazy risky, while all those same friends were happy with 6% returns on their bank CDs. It's about being very selective about whose financial advice you actually take to heart.
That's a sharp point. Okay, what about strategy and actually doing things?
He advises, master a formula and then learn a new one. Like that weekend course on foreclosures he took. You learn one strategy, get good at it, make it work, then you add another tool to your belt. His philosophy is, it is how fast you learn. Keep adding strategies. And tying back to habits, he hammers home again. Pay yourself first. Really build that self-discipline muscle. Allocate money to your asset column before you pay the monthly bills. It forces good habits.
Discipline and continuous learning seem core. What about working with others? Brokers, maybe?
Good point. Kiyosaki says, pay your brokers well. Don't try to nickel and dime them. Good brokers provide priceless information, market insights, deal flow. They save you massive amounts of time. He specifically looks for brokers who actually own property or stocks themselves and who understand tax implications. They have skin in the game, they get it. Another fascinating strategy he mentions, using a, somewhat dated phrase, is being an Indian giver.
Yeah.
What he means is, the sophisticated investor's first question is always, how fast do I get my money back?
Yeah.
The goal is to get your initial investment capital back out of the deal as quickly as possible. So then you essentially own the asset, maybe that rental condo, for free. And it's just generating cash flow, like buying a foreclosed property, renting it out, and having the rent pay back your initial down payment within, say, 3 years. Then it's pure profit, low risk.
That's a really interesting way to think about risk reduction, getting your initial stake back fast. What about spending the profits? Luxuries?
Yes. His rule is, use assets to buy luxuries. Buy the luxuries last, not first. Treat them as rewards for successfully growing your asset column. Never, ever buy luxuries on credit. He tells a great story about a friend teaching his son financial intelligence. The son wanted a car. Instead of just giving him $3,000, the dad had him invest the $3,000 in stocks first. The goal was to turn the $3,000 into $6,000 through investing, then use that profit to buy the car. It transformed the desire for a luxury into a hands-on financial lesson. Brilliant.
That is brilliant. A practical way to build financial savvy. What else?
He also says choose heroes. Find people who've achieved the financial success you admire. Maybe Buffett, maybe someone else. Study them, read their books, understand their strategies, try to model their mindset. And finally, a really interesting one, teach and you shall receive. He believes that giving, whether it's money to charity or sharing your knowledge freely with others, actually creates a flow back to you, an abundance. He says your world is only a mirror of you. Give generously and you receive generously.
Those 10 steps are powerful. Beyond those, he gives some really actionable to-dos as well, right? Like, stop doing what's clearly not working. Obvious, maybe, but important. Actively look for new ideas, especially in how-to books on maybe niche subjects. Find mentors, people who've actually done what you want to do. Take classes. And this one's key. Make lots of offers. Don't be afraid to put offers out there on potential investments. He even jokes about using escape clauses, like needing your business partner's approval and then whispering that his cat is the partner. Just ways to make offers without being fully committed up front.
Yeah, make lots of offers. And he encourages you to constantly be scanning, observing, scan neighborhoods for bargains and change. Look for those for sale signs that have been up forever, moving trucks, new stores opening up. Signs of transition often mean opportunity. And critically, he says to shop for bargains in all markets, especially during market crashes or corrections. That famous line, profits are made in the buying, not in the selling. You make your money when you buy right, often when others are panicking.
That concept, shopping for bargains when things look bad, that's huge, isn't it? It separates the smart investors who, as he says, don't time the markets, but get in position for the next big swell from the reactive crowd. He really emphasizes that great opportunities are not seen with your eyes. They are seen with your mind. It's about developing that financial vision, that insight.
Exactly. And to kind of structure this thinking, Kiyosaki introduces his cash flow quadrant. It's a simple way to categorize where your income comes from. E for employee, S for self-employed or small business owner, B for big business owner, owning systems, and I for investor. Now, he says financial freedom can be found in all quadrants. But he argues that the B and I quadrants accelerated significantly because you're owning systems or investments that work for you, generating income whether you're actively working or not. You're leveraging your time and money.
And he's so passionate about teaching this stuff, he actually created the Cash AF Flow game for adults and kids, which is a pretty unique teaching tool, right? It gets your body, mind, emotions, and spirit involved, as he puts it. It lets you make mistakes with play money, learn about assets versus liabilities, cash flow, basic investing, all in a safe, fun environment.
Yeah, he frames it as an investment in itself. He says it's not as expensive as a college education, working hard all your life, and then living in terror of losing all of your money. It's a really hands-on way to internalize these financial principles, make them second nature.
Wow. We have covered a lot today. From Kiyosaki's challenge to traditional education, his redefining of assets and liabilities, to understanding the strategic power of corporations, and how to overcome those internal roadblocks like fear and cynicism. It's really clear that his philosophy, it's less about which specific stock to buy and much more about a fundamental, like a total shift in mindset.
Absolutely. What really stands out, I think, is that recurring message. True wealth isn't just about how much you make. It's about how much you keep, how long you keep it, and crucially, how much financial intelligence you develop to make that money work for you. It requires being flexible, keeping an open mind, and just continually learning because the world, especially the financial world, is always changing, right?
It really is. And Kiyosaki himself, he famously retired at 27. But he's quick to say retirement does not mean not working. For him, it means his wealth grows automatically whether he works or not, which gives him the freedom, the choice to work or not. He says he keeps teaching just because he loves it. And that idea, having the choice, that's incredibly powerful. He consistently encourages you, the listener, don't play it safe, play it smart.
Which really leaves us with an important question for you to think about, doesn't it? In a world that's constantly pushing us towards those traditional paths, towards job security, how can you start cultivating your own financial genius? How can you start using your mind to create money rather than just working harder and harder for it? And maybe most importantly, what is your personal reason greater than reality? What's that deep why that's going to fuel your financial journey and help you see the opportunities all around you?
As Kiyosaki himself would put it, choose to share this knowledge with your children, and you choose to prepare them for the world that awaits. No one else will.
If you found this episode helpful, please like and subscribe. It really helps me keep bringing you great book summaries every week.